Poverty has certain functions in society, but that does not mean it is necessary or should continue to exist. There are many alternative ways to fulfill the roles that poverty plays. The first one is replacing low-wage labor. One function of poverty is that poor people do low-wage jobs, often called dirty work. However, society could replace these jobs in two ways. The automation where machines could take over many tasks currently done by poorly paid workers, and fairer wages where instead of relying on cheap labor, society could pay all workers fair wages. Second is the alternative social roles, where some professionals benefit from poverty, such as social workers and counselors, police officers, and penologists. Third is the cultural alternatives. Poverty also serves a cultural function. Poor people are often seen as symbols of immorality or as examples of what to avoid. However, other groups in society already fulfill this role, such as entertainers, hippies, and adolescents engaging in rebellious behavior. The fourth one is the status functions in society. In hierarchical societies, some people must be seen as lower than others, but this does not mean they need to be extremely poor. And for the last one, the upward mobility and philanthropy. Today, the poor provide opportunities for others to move up in society by working for low wages or using services meant for low-income groups. However, if the poor were wealthier, they could compete with wealthier individuals and take on roles currently filled by higher income groups. The philanthropy would also change if there were fewer poor people. The wealthy might have fewer people to help, but they could still find ways to support upward mobility in the other ways.
What is the beginning of Filipino society and culture? The beginning of Filipino society and culture dates back to the early settlers of the Philippine archipelago. These early communities, called barangays, were a small, independent village led by a dato chief. In Filipino society was organized in a hierarchical manner with the three social classes: the dato, the leader, timawan, freemen, and alipin, slaves or dependents. The barangay system was vital for governance and social order. Early Filipino practiced agriculture, cultivating crops like rice and root crops, and also rely heavily on the trade. The Philippine tragic location in Southeast Asia allowed it engage in commerce with neighboring regions, trading goods such as gold, pearls, and spices, with cultures in China, India, and the Malay archipelago. Filipino religions beliefs were initially animistic, worshipping spirits and deities tied to the nature. The arrival of Islam in the 14th century, particularly in the southern region, added a new religion's influence. Language in the Philippines were diverse, with the early Filipino using Baybayin, an indigenous script. Early artistic expression included wavy, pottery, and metalwork, reflecting both utility and beauty. These cultural practices laid for the foundation for the rich, diverse, and Filipino identity that would evolve over time. Here's the most important of the beginning of Filipino society and culture. First, barangay system and social organization. Barangays, small communities led by a dato or chieftain, were the basic units of Filipino society. The barangay was not just physical village but also a socio-political entity with clear structures and roles. This system provided early Filipinos with a sense of community and collective governance, shaping Filipino concept of leadership and social responsibility. Social stratification existed with a timawa, freemen, and alipin or slaves occupying different levels, but the relationships were not rigid. There was fluidity in status, and some alipin could rise to higher position, reflecting a relatively more flexible societal structures compared to other Asian societies. Second, economic foundations. Agriculture and trade. Agriculture, particularly the cultivation of rice and root crops, was the foundation of the early Filipino economy. Farming techniques like terracing were used to adapt to the hilly terrain, especially in areas like the Cordilleras. Trade played a critical role in the early development of Filipino society. The Philippines was an important part of Southeast Asian maritime trade routes, engaging in a commerce with China, India, and other parts of the world. Filipinos trade gold, pearls, and spices and handicrafts, which allowed them to interact with diverse cultures and exchange ideas, further enriching their society. Third, religion and spiritual beliefs. Animism was the dominant belief system, with the early Filipinos worshipping spirits of nature and ancestral deities. This deeply spiritual connection to nature influenced many aspects of daily life, including agricultural practices, rituals, and even governance. Islam also arrived in the Philippines in the 14th century, particularly in the southern island, where it became a major influence on the culture and political structures of communities, like the Sultanate of Sulu. Over time, the interaction with the external religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and later Christianity would, would alter Filipino religious practices. But the foundation in animism and indigenous spirituality remain a significant part of the Filipino cultural identity. Fourth, language and communication. The Philippines is home to hundreds of indigenous languages, all part of the Austronesian language family. The diversity of languages spoken by early Filipino reflected the regional differences and the richness of their cultural identities. The existence of early writing systems such as Baybayin, a syllabic script, is also an important cultural marker. Though it was not widely spread, it shows that the Filipino had their own system of communication and documentation long before Spanish colonization. Fifth, arts and crafts. Early Filipino society was known for its craftsmanship, which was evident in the production of everyday objects as well as artistic items. Weaving of pottery, metalworking, and wood carving were highly developed, with each region having its own distinctive craft traditions. The weaving traditions like those in Ilocanos and the Visayas produced textiles that were not only utilitarian but also beautifully intricate. These arts played an essential role in both the practical and spiritual lives of early Filipinos, often being linked to cultural identity. 6. Maritime culture. The early Filipinos' reliance on the sea for food, transportation, and trade shaped a maritime culture. The use of boats like abalangay was critical not only for fishing and local trade but also for inter-island migration and communication. This led to a strong sense of connection among the various islands of the Philippines and helped create a broader sense of Filipino identity despite geographic separation. Lastly, external influences. The arrival of foreign cultures through trade exploration had a significant impact on the Filipino society. Chinese traders brought silk, porcelain, and new ideas, which influenced the Filipino art, commerce, and culture. Indian and Arab influences introduced new religions, language, and artistic practices. The spread of Islam from Southeast Asia in the 14th century laid the foundation for Islamic culture in the southern Philippines, particularly in the Mindanao and the Sulu archipelago.